Guys, welcome back to another Broadcasters YouTube video. Today we got our top 24 running backs for week 11 of fantasy football. And guys, if you want our rest of season rankings and all of our extra exclusive content, it's on SOBET. Us and 25 plus other creators all post exclusive content on there. If you guys are interested, go check it out. It's the first link in the description.
Our RB1 for the week is Austin Ekeler. Austin Ekeler had a bit of a disappointing week last week against the 49ers, but that's a great run defense. Ekeler is still that elite player. He's still our RB1 this week.
And our running back 2 is Saquon Barkley. Back-to-back amazing matchups. Played the Texans last week, had over 20 points. Gets to play the Lions this week. Expect tons of points for Saquon.
And at RB3, we got Derrick Henry. Henry last week was a little bit disappointing against the Broncos. He kind of did get shut down, but we like the bounce back. Versus the Packers, he's still an elite option for week 11.
And last player in this tier is Christian McCaffrey. He might not have as much upside anymore as there's so many good players on this Niners team. Plus, Elijah Mitchell did get more carries than him last game, but CMC is still a superstar for fantasy, has to be an elite RB1.
And at our RB5, we have Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, again, was a little disappointing last week and has a really tough matchup this week. The Buffalo Bills are really good against running backs, though. Nick Chubb, though, he's that Browns offense. He's the core of that offense. They run the ball a ton, and we still love him for week 11.
And running back 6 is Aaron Jones. He has been getting absolutely fed lately, getting so many carries, so many touches. Bit of a tough matchup against the Titans, but again, when you have that much volume, you have to be an RB1.
At RB7, we got Joe Mixon. The last game this guy played, again, over 55 fantasy points. He balled out. He goes against the Steelers. He did play the Steelers in week 1, put up more than 20 fantasy points. He's a great start.
And finally, last player in this tier is Jonathan Taylor. He is finally back. He balled out last week against the Raiders, had over 20 points, absolutely destroyed them. It's a tough matchup against the Eagles, but again, JT has to be an RB1.
And our first player in this borderline RB1 tier is Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook has been very solid. He's put up like 12 or more points, at least the last 6 games or something like that. Last week, he had a tough matchup against Buffalo. Did score over 20 fantasy points. Yes, that was because he had that 81-yard rushing touchdown that did save his week. This week, another tough matchup against the Cowboys. Dalvin Cook's been so good, though, that you have to be starting him.
And running back 9, we got Josh Jacobs. Again, like Jonathan Taylor, both those running backs had great games in the matchup against each other. This week plays the Broncos, who just shut down Derrick Henry. Don't love the matchup. He still is an RB1. We just don't love the upside.
And our RB11, we got Alvin Kamara. Again, a little disappointing last week and has a super tough matchup. Goes against the Rams. The Rams, yes, they don't have Cooper Kupp now, but their defense is still super elite. They're really good against running backs. Kamara has that PPR upside. That's why we still like him, but I would temper expectations a little bit. Don't expect like an elite RB1 week.
And last player in this RB1 tier is Ramondre Stevenson. Plays the Jets at home, and he cooked the Jets last time a few weeks ago, had over 20 points. He gets so many targets, so many receptions. Ramondre has been amazing for fantasy.
And at RB13, we got Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce, we had him as a sit last week against the Giants. Tough defense, only put up 12.2 fantasy points, I think it was. This week, another tough matchup against Washington. Washington is pretty good against running backs. Dameon Pierce is this guy. Every single game, he's going to get rushing yards, but he doesn't get a ton of PPR work. And he almost needs a touchdown to have a really good week. We like him as a start, but he's just not an elite player.
RB14 is James Conner. He was awesome last week. Finally had a 20-point game this season. It was without Kyler Murray, and he still looked awesome. San Fran is a bit of a tough matchup, but again, he was so good last week, finally utilizing him. They just released Eno Benjamin for whatever reason, so maybe that means even more touches. Yeah, Conner, definitely like him as a start this week.
And at RB15, we got Dante Foreman. Dante Foreman last week, we didn't know what to feel about him. Put up over 19 points against the Falcons. He's looking like a great start going forward. We thought Chuba might take a little bit from him. No, Dante Foreman was this clear workhorse, was this RB1 in the Panthers offense. Goes against the Ravens. The Ravens are pretty good against the run, pretty bad against the pass. Foreman's been so good, though, that I think he has to be in your starting lineup.
Next up, we got David Montgomery, first player in the RB2 tier. He has just been so bad. For whatever reason, Khalil Herbert is questionable. So if Herbert doesn't play, he might be a pure bell cow, which does raise his value. It is a good matchup against the Falcons, but again, he has been so bad, we just don't feel like we can put him any higher than this.
And at RB17, we got Miles Sanders. We like Miles Sanders on Monday night. He only put up, I think, less than 6 fantasy points. Did do pretty bad this week against the Colts. It is a decent matchup. The Colts are really good against the pass, not great against the run. If Miles Sanders can get in the end zone, he'll have a good day for fantasy, but if he doesn't, he always has these off games when he doesn't score.
Next up, we got Devin Singletary. He was great to start last week, had 2 rushing touchdowns in the first half, kind of sizzled out near the end, but again this week has a pretty good matchup. The Browns, I believe, are the second worst team in all of the NFL against running backs for fantasy, so a good matchup, like the upside of Singletary here.
And next RB, we got Najee Harris. Najee Harris, it's just very concerning for Najee. Last time against the Bengals, he scored that receiving touchdown, which saved his week, but still put up under 15 fantasy points, and last week Steelers were winning. They were beating the Saints, and he still could only get 9.9 fantasy points. Didn't have a single reception. Najee's looking concerning. Again, this matchup against Cincy, it's a pretty tough defense. Had some success against them last time. We just don't love him as a start.
Next up, we got Antonio Gibson. Without J.D. McKissick, he is the clear receiving back for this offense. Yes, Brian Robinson is taking a lot of the rushes, but Gibson gets those catches. They both get goal line work, so it's kind of just who gets the touchdowns. It depends on the drive. But again, upside's pretty good being the receiving back in Washington.
And next up at RB21, we got Jamal Williams. Last week, did pretty good, scored 11.9 fantasy points, only did play on 40% of snaps, but got 16 carries. When this guy was on the field, he was getting the ball. This week, though, it's a pretty tough matchup against the Giants. We don't expect a ton of PPR work. He might get a touchdown. Swift right now is looking unstartable with his workload, so Jamal Williams steps up as the Lions' RB1.
And next up, we got Tony Pollard. This is assuming Zeke does return. If Zeke doesn't return, skyrockets up the ranking. He is an RB1, but assuming Zeke does return, they are going to split. Pollard has been looking awesome, though. I believe he is better than Zeke right now. It's against the Vikings. It's a bit of a tough matchup, but again, he's just been so good.
At RB23, we got Isaiah Pacheco. This is his debut on the top 24 list. Isaiah Pacheco has a great matchup this week against the Chargers. Last game, had 62 rushing yards, played on 56% of snaps. He's looking like the Chiefs' RB1. He should play first and second down. Jerick McKinnon should play third down. CEH right now is looking useless. Again, Chargers, great matchup for Pacheco. Chiefs could go up in this game, could run the ball a lot. Basically, all the rushing attempts are going to Pacheco right now. We like him as a start.
And the last player of the video is Brian Robinson. You got both Brian Robinson and Gibson. Forgot to mention for Gibson, the matchup is phenomenal versus the Texans, who are absolutely horrible against running backs. Worst team in the entire NFL. They basically let every single running back run all over them. And Brian Robinson, getting tons of rushing attempts, has pretty decent upside this week against the Texans.
And boys, thanks so much for watching. Again, check out our SOBET if you want our full rest of season rankings. You also get the content of 25 other creators. Such a great community over there. Thanks so much for watching the video. We'll see you guys next time.